Thank you, Tim. Tim had a hard life. And I had a hard life as a teenager, too. And many of us in this room suffered greatly when we were teenagers. Teenagers today suffer a lot more than we did when we were kids. They end up in a place where the media is totally distorting the truth for them. They love a God and they serve a God who they can't even say his name in school. They take college classes where they end up completely confused when they walk out the door. As Catholic teenagers, they end up being highly influenced by their Protestant friends, by their Muslim friends, by their atheist friends. And they're confused. They're having a hard time. The job of a teenager is to ask the hard questions. The job of a teenager is to ask the hard questions that you and I asked when we were kids. Who am I? Where am I going? Who will I become? Is there really a God? Is he real for me? Does anybody really like me? Will anybody love me? Is there anyone to trust? Those are the questions that they are asking, and they're getting the wrong answers. Catholic kids are leaving their faith in droves because we're not giving them the answers. When they leave, it's our fault that we didn't pass our faith on to them. Whatever the reason that we love our faith, we have to give to them. If they don't have a place, if Tim didn't have a place, he would be with all the other kids. If they don't have a place in their own church, then we're failing them. Today is the feast of Christ the King, one of the greatest feast days in the Catholic Church because it celebrates Christ's triumph over all the suffering and pain and death. If we lived in a different place and time, we may have the opportunity to visit a king. And when you visit a king, you bring a gift. An earthly king takes the gift in and keeps it for his own gain, for his own self. We serve and love and know a king who gives us a generous return for our gift. If we give the gift of monetary funds, God gives us back tenfold. Anyone who's committed to tithing is committed to living that principle. It's a life of faith when you tithe. If you give your time, you get great joy. You know how it is when you help another person and how much joy you get inside? That's a generous return that God gives us. He doesn't keep it for himself, he gives it back to us. When we give our talents, we get fulfillment inside of seeing the fruits of our labor that's beyond measure. Today, I'm asking you, pleading with you, to bring your gifts collectively to the King so that he can give you a great return. St. Marguerite's has asked Tim and I to come out and talk to you about what it would be like to have a youth program. Middle school, high school, all of it. And what that would mean is that you would have to hire a youth minister. A youth minister is not afraid of the hard questions. They're not afraid of that blank stare that they sometimes get from teenagers. You know why teenagers give you that blank stare? Because they're looking at you trying to find the answers. Am I going to be like that person? Does that person believe in me? Does that person like me? What do I like about that person? They're taking everything that they have and putting it into looking at you and figuring out their own life. So a youth minister would come in and they wouldn't be afraid of those questions. And they would be equipped, he or she would be equipped to give the right answers. A youth minister also will affirm all of the good stuff that a parent is trying to do at home. And the youth minister will also provide a place for teenagers to have support with one another. If you have a professional youth minister come in to work here, you're going to have a program that has a lot of really cool elements to it. I'm going to talk right now to the teenagers sitting in this row and see if they like the idea of some of these things. Okay, you. If a youth minister comes into your parish, you will have a community of support for each other. You'll have a weekly program where there's going to be fun and friends, food and faith. There'll be service project opportunities where you can do it in your parish and out in the community. You'll have events like skiing and camping and hiking retreats, lock-ins and parties. Does that sound good? Yes. You'll have Bible studies and prayer group, inspiration and teachings. But most importantly, you know what they're going to get? They're going to get the truth. They're going to get the answers to the hard questions. And the youth minister also, he or she will serve as a bridge in the parish between the parish and the teenagers. Most teenagers are treated like aliens because nobody quite gets that blank stare and that look. So the youth minister is a bridge between that for the teenagers in the parish. The youth minister also works closely with the pastor and the DRE to make sure the vision of the parish is kept intact in the youth program. And the youth minister is a resource for the parents and a mentor for the teens. They bridge the gap between the young and the old, and they give the teens a place to call home in their very own parish. I've been working with teenagers since I've been a youth minister and a young adult minister for 18 years in the Catholic Church. And I promise you it works. If you guys collectively bring your gifts to the King, the return is going to be amazing. Teenagers are more influenced by their peers. A parent has the first 12 to 13 years of the child's life to form and shape in God. And around age 13 or 14, a kid starts looking at other people for their influence. It's the natural progression. It's supposed to happen. It's the parent's job to sort of guide and direct them to good people. We can't always control that, but we can certainly offer it. The youth group that I run right now at St. Catherine's, we didn't have a youth group for 4 years at St. Catherine's because the pastor didn't want one. And they asked me to come back and start a new one. It's only 7 weeks old. And we already have one young woman that's come in that wants to convert her faith to being Catholic. We strive very hard to provide a program that our teens are proud of, to bring their friends. They want to bring their friends. And instead of our kids leaving and going to the other churches and getting converted, they're bringing their friends, and their friends are discovering the richness of the Catholic faith. And we are welcoming them with open arms. We need to give a place in our church where our kids are proud to bring their friends and to show them their faith. There, right now, in this parish, in this family, right here, there is a young person who is sad. Right now in this parish, there's a young person who is lonely. Right now in this parish, there's a young person who is depressed. There's a young person that's suicidal. There's a young person who's getting in fights. There's a young person who's fighting with their parents. There's a young person who wants a friend. There's a young Tim. There's a young me. There's a young you. And for them, we need to throw all our gifts in a basket, bring it to the King, and watch the return that comes back. I promise you, if you invest in this, the return will be very generous.